On a bright November morning, a tech billionaire was speeding down Highway 17 in his $400,000 Bugatti to a crucial board meeting when suddenly his engine overheated, leaving him stranded. A homeless black woman in torn clothes approached to help. "I don't have cash on me," he dismissed her, assuming she wanted money. Then she uttered 4 words that left him utterly speechless. "I can fix your car." What happened next was something the billionaire never would have believed, even if revealed by a fortune teller. Have you ever had everything you believed about worth and capability completely shattered by someone society told you to ignore? Welcome back to Eva's Stories. I have missed you all so much. Thank you for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let me take you back to where this story really began. The Bugatti Chiron's engine purred like a mechanical symphony as Preston Cole downshifted around the curves of Highway 17. Morning fog clung to the Santa Cruz Mountains, but inside his $400,000 masterpiece, everything was crystalline clear. Carbon fiber dashboard gleamed under LED accent lighting. Leather seats, handcrafted in Italy, embraced him like a throne. Preston's fingers drummed against the steering wheel, mind already racing toward his 2 p.m. board meeting at TechFlow Industries. His company's latest acquisition, a promising AI startup in Palo Alto, needed his final approval. $48 million in venture capital hung in the balance. His phone buzzed against the wireless charging pad. "Beth, what's the status on the Henderson contract?" His voice activated the hands-free system. "Signed and sealed, Mr. Cole. Your 130 moved to 145 to accommodate traffic patterns." His assistant's efficiency never ceased to amaze him. "Also, Trevor called about your car service next week." "Right. Book it." Preston switched lanes, acceleration pressing him deeper into premium leather. Trevor Hawkins had been maintaining his automotive collection for 3 years now. Expensive, but the man knew European engineering like Mozart knew piano keys. The speedometer climbed past 90. Preston loved this feeling. Control, power, precision. Every component working in perfect harmony, every system responding to his command. Money bought reliability. Money bought excellence. Money bought. What have I learned about our potential in emerging markets? The question would dominate his presentation. TechFlow's board members expected vision, not just profit margins. They wanted the future delivered on silver platters. Preston's reflection stared back from the rearview mirror. 38 years old, brown hair perfectly styled, blue eyes that had closed deals worth hundreds of millions. His navy suit, tailored in London, fit like it was stitched directly onto his frame. Success looked good on him. The phone buzzed again. "Mr. Cole, your lunch reservation at Boulevard is confirmed. Chef Henri prepared something special." Excellent. Preston's stomach hadn't even considered hunger yet, but his schedule demanded fuel. Efficiency in all things. Time was money, money was time, and both were finite resources requiring careful management. Outside the window, California's Golden Hills rolled past like a painting. Preston owned land out here, development potential for luxury condominiums. His real estate portfolio stretched from San Francisco to Los Angeles, each property carefully selected, each investment calculated to maximum precision. The Bugatti's engine note shifted slightly. Barely perceptible. Preston frowned, pressing the accelerator. The response felt different. Sluggish. He downshifted manually, checking the temperature gauge. Still within normal range. Probably nothing. European cars were temperamental. Trevor always said so. "These machines are artists," the mechanic would explain, hands gesturing toward gleaming engines. "They have moods, personalities. Treat them right, they sing. Treat them wrong." Preston dismissed the thought. His car received better maintenance than most people's homes. Regular service, premium fluids, genuine parts. Trevor's shop specialized in high-end European vehicles. The man charged accordingly, but quality demanded investment. Highway 17 straightened as it approached Los Gatos. Preston's phone displayed 12 missed calls from various business associates. The acquisition meeting would determine TechFlow's next expansion phase. Success meant positioning for IPO within 18 months. Failure meant, well, failure wasn't an option. Meanwhile, across town, Melanie Castellanos crouched behind a dumpster in downtown San Jose, watching police patrol cars cruise past. Her stomach cramped with hunger. 2 days since her last real meal. The November chill cut through her tattered denim jacket, the one she'd owned since her engineering days. Back when she had engineering days. 3 years ago, she'd worn business suits and attended board meetings. Melanie Castellanos, senior automotive engineer at Dynamic Motors Corporation. She'd designed hybrid engine systems, optimized fuel injection algorithms, solved problems that had stumped teams of PhDs. Her colleagues respected her expertise. Until Jenna Walsh decided respect wasn't enough. Melanie pulled her knit cap lower, remembering the final conversation in Jenna's corner office. The intellectual property theft evidence is overwhelming, Melanie. Security cameras show you accessing classified files after hours. Jenna's smile had been razor-sharp. We have to protect company interests. But Melanie had been working late to solve a critical engineering flaw. Her access logs proved it. Except somehow, her logs showed something entirely different when Internal Affairs investigated. Files had been copied to external drives. Company secrets allegedly sold to competitors. I never. Melanie had started. The decision is final. Jenna's voice was silk over steel. Clean out your desk. Security will escort you. The setup was masterful. Melanie's former colleagues, people she'd considered friends, had orchestrated everything. Her professional reputation destroyed, her security clearance revoked, her industry contacts poisoned with whispers about corporate espionage. But destroying her career wasn't enough. 2 weeks after termination, Melanie's bank account emptied overnight. Fraudulent transfers, identity theft, credit cards maxed out by phantom purchases. The paper trail led back to her own login credentials. Again, impossible to prove her innocence when the evidence looked so convincing. Someone with inside knowledge did this, the bank investigator explained. They knew your security questions, your account patterns, your spending habits. Someone like Jenna Walsh. Someone like the colleagues who'd smiled at Melanie's birthday party just months earlier. Melanie had lost everything within 30 days. Apartment lease canceled due to missed payments. Car repossessed. Professional references destroyed. Friends and family, convinced by the fraud evidence, turned their backs. Her brother in Denver wouldn't return calls. Her parents in Phoenix changed their phone number. The streets of San Jose had become her home by default. Nowhere else to go. No one left to trust. But they couldn't steal her knowledge. Melanie emerged from behind the dumpster, checking for patrol cars. Downtown San Jose bustled with Saturday morning activity. Families headed to soccer games, couples walking to brunch, business people hurrying toward office buildings. Normal people with normal lives. She walked toward Martinez Auto Repair, hoping Frank would have worked today. Small independent shops sometimes needed extra hands for weekend projects. Melanie's expertise with European engines occasionally earned her $20 here, $50 there. Enough for food, maybe a motel room if she was lucky. Frank Martinez had hired her 3 times in the past month. His regular customers owned luxury vehicles requiring specialized knowledge. BMW, Mercedes, Audi. Most homeless people couldn't diagnose complex automotive problems. But Melanie wasn't most homeless people. You got magic hands, Frank had said last week, watching her repair a stubborn transmission leak on a BMW X5. Where'd you learn this stuff? Melanie never answered those questions. Her past was a locked vault. Too painful to open, too dangerous to share. People judged homeless individuals harshly enough without adding disgraced engineer to their assumptions. She turned the corner toward Frank's shop, stomach growling audibly. A taco truck was parked nearby, Carlos Mendez's weekend spot. The man had given her free meals twice, asking no questions, expecting no payment. Kindness still existed in the world, though it was rare. Melanie! Carlos waved from behind his service window. "You hungry?" She was always hungry, but pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Maybe later, Carlos. Looking for work first." Frank's inside. European car giving him trouble. BMW, I think. Melanie nodded gratefully. European cars were her specialty. During her engineering career, she'd spent 2 years in Germany studying advanced automotive systems. Her expertise with BMW's complex electronic systems had made her indispensable at dynamic motors, until it made her dangerous to colleagues who wanted her position. She pushed through Martinez Auto Repair's front door, bell chiming overhead. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal shavings welcomed her like an old friend. This was her element, engines and problems and solutions. Here, her knowledge mattered more than her circumstances. Frank looked up from behind the counter, grease-stained coveralls hanging loosely on his broad frame. "Melanie! Perfect timing. Got a BMW 7 Series that's stumping my best mechanic. Electronic fuel injection system is acting crazy." Melanie felt that familiar spark, the intellectual excitement of a challenging problem. This was who she really was. Not the homeless woman sleeping in doorways. Not the fraud victim everyone had abandoned. She was Melanie Castellanos, automotive engineer, problem solver, expert. "Show me," she said simply. As they walked toward the service bay, Melanie caught her reflection in a chrome bumper. Hollow cheeks, dark circles under brown eyes, black hair unwashed for days. Her bright red sweater, once her favorite, now bore stains from countless nights outdoors. She looked like what she was, a woman who'd lost everything. But her hands were steady. Her mind was sharp. And somewhere out there, someone would need exactly what she could offer. The morning sun climbed higher over San Jose, casting long shadows across the city. 2 lives moved along separate trajectories, one in luxury, one in survival. Neither knew that destiny was about to force their paths to intersect in the most unexpected way. Preston Cole's Bugatti continued north toward Silicon Valley, its engine singing a slightly off-key tune that its driver hadn't yet noticed. Melanie Castellanos rolled up her sleeves, preparing to work magic on another complex problem, her expertise hidden beneath society's assumptions about worth. The stage was set. The players were in position. And miles away on Highway 17, a $400,000 engine was beginning to overheat. Preston's dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Temperature gauge redlined. Warning chimes echoed through the Bugatti's cabin. The engine's purr transformed into an angry growl, then a desperate wheeze. "No, no, no." Preston pulled toward the shoulder, expensive tires crunching over gravel. Steam poured from beneath the hood, white clouds billowing into the California morning. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. The engine died with a final, expensive-sounding shudder. Preston sat in sudden silence, staring at the dashboard's accusatory red lights. Temperature critical. Engine failure. System shutdown. 12 years of owning exotic cars, and he'd never experienced catastrophic breakdown. His phone buzzed. Beth's voice filled the cabin. "Mr. Cole, your ETA shows delayed. Traffic issues. Mechanical issues." Preston fought to keep frustration from his voice. "Contact Trevor. Emergency service call. Highway 17, southbound, mile marker 23. Trevor's shop shows closed until Monday, sir. Weekend emergency calls start at $500 plus diagnostic fees." $500. Preston spent more on lunch. "Fine. Whatever he charges. Sir, his emergency number goes to voicemail. Automated response says he's attending a vintage car show in Monterey through Sunday." Preston's jaw tightened. This was exactly why he paid premium prices for premium service. Reliability. Availability. Support when needed. And now Trevor was unavailable when his expertise was most crucial. He killed the call and stepped outside. The Bugatti's sleek lines looked pathetic on the highway shoulder, hood releasing occasional steam puffs like automotive death rattles. Traffic thundered past without slowing. Nobody stopped for stranded luxury vehicles. Preston lifted the hood, revealing the Chiron's complex W16 engine. 16 cylinders, 4 turbochargers, 1,479 horsepower when functioning properly. Now it looked like abstract art made from overheated metal and boiling coolant. He knew nothing about engines beyond their horsepower ratings and price tags. His expertise was software, algorithms, business strategy. Mechanical systems might as well be alien technology. His phone showed 11:52 a.m. The board meeting started at 2 p.m. Even with emergency roadside assistance, he'd never make it on time. $48 million in acquisition funding could evaporate because of radiator failure. Preston loosened his tie, November sun beating down despite the morning chill. Sweat beaded on his forehead. This was exactly the kind of crisis money was supposed to prevent. Premium vehicles. Premium service. Premium reliability. A figure approached from the direction of San Jose. Preston initially dismissed it as another hitchhiker or panhandler. Highway shoulders attracted desperate people seeking rides or handouts. He'd learned to avoid eye contact, keep walking, maintain distance. But this person walked with purpose toward his specific location. A woman, judging by her build. Homeless, obviously. Torn jeans, faded red sweater, knit cap pulled low. She moved with careful steps, watching his car more than him. Preston's first instinct was retreat. Get back in the Bugatti, lock the doors, wait for professional help. Homeless individuals could be unpredictable, desperate, dangerous. The woman stopped 20 feet away, studying his smoking engine with professional interest. Not his wallet, not his expensive watch, not his tailored suit. She was examining his mechanical problem like a doctor studying symptoms. Engine trouble? Her voice carried genuine concern, not the wheedling tone he expected from panhandlers. Obviously. Preston's response came out sharper than intended. I don't carry cash, so. I wasn't asking for money. The woman stepped closer, ignoring his defensive posture. Looks like coolant system failure. When did the temperature gauge start climbing? Preston blinked. This homeless woman was asking diagnostic questions. Technical questions. As if she actually understood automotive systems. About 10 minutes ago. Started gradually, then spiked suddenly. He found himself answering despite his better judgment. The woman nodded thoughtfully. Classic symptoms. Mind if I take a look? Look at what? Your engine. I might be able to help. Preston almost laughed. A homeless woman offering automotive assistance for his $400,000 European masterpiece. The absurdity was complete. Like asking a street musician to conduct the San Francisco Symphony. I really don't think. He started. You're Preston Cole. The woman's statement stopped him cold. I recognize you from TechFlow News articles. Your company just acquired 3 startups this quarter. Preston's shock was visible. Random homeless individuals weren't supposed to know his business activities or recognize him from financial publications. This woman had read industry news. Recently. How do you? I stay informed about technology sector developments. Her explanation sounded matter-of-fact, not boastful. Your acquisition strategy focuses on artificial intelligence companies with proven revenue streams. Preston stared at this woman who looked like she hadn't eaten in days, but could discuss his corporate strategy intelligently. Nothing about this interaction made sense. The woman moved closer to his engine, studying the steam patterns with analytical precision. This isn't random failure. Someone's been using substandard components in your cooling system. That's impossible. Trevor services this car exclusively. He uses only original manufacturer parts. Trevor. The woman's eyebrows lifted. Tall guy, mustache, shop on Stevens Creek Boulevard? You know him. Know of him. His reputation among automotive professionals is questionable. Preston's confusion deepened. This homeless woman knew his mechanic by reputation, knew his business activities, understood complex automotive systems. Either she was remarkably well informed for someone living on the streets, or, what exactly are you suggesting about Trevor? The woman peered deeper into his engine compartment, pointing at specific components. See that radiator hose? Wrong manufacturer. That coolant reservoir? Aftermarket plastic, not original aluminum. Your thermostat housing shows obvious replacement with inferior materials. Preston followed her pointing finger. The components looked identical to him. Metal was metal. Plastic was plastic. How could she distinguish original parts from replacements? These are counterfeit parts, the woman continued. Designed to fail within specific time frames. Probably 6 months since your last major service, right? Preston's blood chilled. His last comprehensive service had been in May. 6 months ago exactly. Trevor's been systematically replacing your original components with cheap imitations, creating problems that require expensive repairs. Classic fraud scheme. The accusation hit Preston like physical impact. Trevor had been maintaining his automotive collection for 3 years. Expensive maintenance, but Preston had trusted the man's expertise implicitly. Premium prices for premium service. That's a serious accusation, Preston said carefully. It's a serious crime. The woman straightened, meeting his eyes directly. I can fix your immediate problem. Get you back on the road. But you need to address the fraud before it damages your transmission or engine internals. Preston stared at this homeless woman who claimed she could repair what his expensive mechanic had allegedly sabotaged. The contradiction was overwhelming. Everything about her appearance suggested someone who'd lost everything. But her knowledge suggested someone with extensive automotive expertise. You can actually fix this? I can fix it. Her voice carried quiet confidence. Question is whether you trust me enough to let me try. Trust. Preston hadn't considered trusting anyone today except his absent mechanic. Now this woman was asking him to trust her expertise over his assumptions about competence and appearance. His phone buzzed. Beth again. Mr. Cole, should I reschedule your board meeting? Preston looked at his smoking engine. At the homeless woman studying his problem with professional intensity. At his expensive car reduced to roadside decoration. Give me 5 minutes, he told Beth. The woman was already walking back toward his engine, rolling up her sleeves like she meant business. Preston realized he was about to discover whether desperation could overcome prejudice. Whether expertise mattered more than appearances. Whether this homeless woman could save his $48 million meeting with knowledge his money couldn't buy. The California sun climbed higher. Traffic continued thundering past. And somewhere in the space between trust and skepticism, 2 strangers prepared to test everything they thought they knew about worth, wisdom, and the assumptions that blind us to extraordinary people hidden in ordinary circumstances. Preston watched Melanie circle his Bugatti like a surgeon examining a patient. Her movements were methodical, professional, completely at odds with her homeless appearance. She traced coolant lines with her finger, tested hose connections, examined fluid stains on the asphalt. Everything in his brain screamed this was insane. Homeless people didn't repair $400,000 automobiles. They asked for spare change, not diagnostic opportunities. His world operated on credentials, references, certifications. Melanie had none of those things. I need to call my insurance company, Preston announced, pulling out his phone. They'll arrange proper roadside assistance. Melanie glanced up from beneath the hood. How long will that take? Hour, maybe 2. Preston was already dialing. Professional service is worth waiting for. Your meeting starts at 2 o'clock. Preston froze, phone halfway to his ear. She'd been listening to his conversation with Beth, paying attention to details while appearing to focus on his engine. This woman noticed everything. Premium Roadside. This is Angela. How can I help you today? Preston Cole, member number. He rattled off his account information, watching Melanie continue her examination. She was checking fluid levels now, using a makeshift dipstick fashioned from a roadside weed. I show your location on Highway 17. We can have a certified technician there by 1:30 p.m., sir. 1:30 p.m. 30 minutes before his board meeting. Even if the technician fixed everything instantly, he'd never make it to Palo Alto in time. $48 million evaporating because of radiator failure. Sir, would you like me to dispatch emergency service? Preston looked at Melanie, who was now studying something beneath his car with intense concentration. She'd found a problem. He could see it in her posture, the way she tilted her head, the slight frown creasing her forehead. Let me call you back, he told Angela. Melanie straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans. Your oil pan has a slow leak. Fresh stains under the engine. Started recently, maybe last few days. Preston crouched beside her, following her pointing finger. Dark spots dotted the asphalt beneath his car. He'd never noticed them before, but now they seemed obvious. Trevor mentioned an oil change last week, Preston said slowly. Did he show you the old oil? Explain why it needed changing. Preston tried to remember. He said it was routine maintenance. 15,000-mile intervals. This car should go 25,000 miles between oil changes. Advanced synthetic lubricants. Melanie stood, brushing dirt from her knees. Someone's been changing your oil twice as often as necessary, and installing drain plugs that create slow leaks. The fraud was deeper than Preston had imagined. Not just counterfeit parts, but unnecessary services. Manufactured problems. Trevor had been systematically milking his automotive collection for 3 years. How do you know all this? Preston asked. Melanie hesitated, and for the first time, her confidence wavered. I used to work in automotive engineering. Used to. Long story. Melanie's voice carried pain she was trying to hide. The point is, I can fix your immediate problem. Get you to your meeting. But I need you to trust me. Trust. There was that word again. Preston's entire business philosophy centered on verified expertise. Credentials. Track records. Reputation. Melanie had none of those things, at least none that he could verify. His phone buzzed. Text message from Beth. Board members asking about your ETA. Should I stall? 1:15 p.m. 45 minutes until his career-defining presentation. The acquisition that would position TechFlow for IPO. Everything he'd worked for hanging in the balance. What exactly would you need to do? Preston asked. Bypass the damaged thermostat, refill the coolant system, tighten your oil drain plug. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Melanie met his eyes directly. I'd need to get under your car. Use tools from your emergency kit. Preston realized he was seriously considering this. Letting a homeless woman perform emergency surgery on his $400,000 vehicle. His insurance would probably void his coverage for unauthorized repairs. What if you make it worse? Then you're exactly where you are now. Stranded. Except you'll have tried something instead of waiting for help that won't arrive in time. Her logic was frustratingly sound. Professional roadside assistance wouldn't reach him until after his meeting started. Melanie was here now, claiming she could solve his problem immediately. But letting her work on his car meant acknowledging that his assumptions about competence and appearance might be wrong. That homeless didn't automatically mean helpless. That professional expertise could exist outside professional circumstances. Preston's phone rang. Mr. Cole, this is Dr. Harrison from the board. We're wondering about your presentation timeline. Dr. Harrison. The venture capitalist whose approval could make or break the acquisition. The man controlled $300 million in investment capital. Minor delay. Dr. Harrison. I'll be there promptly at 2. Excellent. We're eager to hear your strategic analysis. Preston ended the call, stomach churning with anxiety. His presentation slides were perfect. His financial projections were conservative but promising. Everything depended on being physically present to deliver them. Melanie was watching him struggle with his decision. You don't trust me. I don't know you. Fair point. Melanie stepped back from his car. But you know Trevor. Trusted him for 3 years. How'd that work out? The question hit home. Preston had trusted Trevor based on reputation, expensive equipment, professional appearance. All the surface indicators that suggested competence. And Trevor had been systematically defrauding him. Now Melanie was offering help based on actual knowledge, demonstrated expertise, accurate diagnosis. But her appearance suggested someone society had discarded. "Why would you help me?" Preston asked. "I was rude to you. Dismissed you. Assumed you wanted money." Melanie was quiet for a long moment, considering her answer. "Because I know what it's like when nobody believes you're capable of fixing things." Something in her voice suggested deeper pain. Personal experience with being dismissed, underestimated, written off. Preston recognized that tone because he'd heard it in his own voice during TechFlow's early days. When venture capitalists rejected his proposals based on his age. When industry veterans dismissed his innovations as naive. "If I let you try this," Preston said carefully, "and it works, what do you want in return?" "Nothing. Everyone wants something." "Not everyone." Melanie was already walking toward his car's emergency toolkit. "Sometimes people help because they can. Because it's right. Because someone needs to." Preston watched her extract basic automotive tools from his trunk storage compartment. Wrenches, screwdrivers, emergency coolant, a small hydraulic jack. Equipment he'd never used, purchased solely because the Bugatti dealer recommended comprehensive emergency kits. Melanie tested each tool, familiarizing herself with their specifications. Her movements were practiced, confident. She handled automotive equipment like Preston handled computer keyboards. Natural extension of her abilities. "Last chance to call Premium Roadside," Melanie said, positioning the jack beneath his car's frame. Preston looked at his phone. 1:22 p.m. 38 minutes until professional failure or personal breakthrough. "You really think you can fix this?" "I know I can fix this." Melanie's voice carried absolute certainty. "Question is whether you're brave enough to let me try." Brave. Preston built his career on calculated risks, careful analysis, measured decisions. This felt like jumping off a cliff with no safety net. Trusting someone completely outside his experience or comfort zone. But sitting on Highway 17 until professional help arrived meant certain failure. At least Melanie offered possibility. "Do it," Preston said. Melanie smiled for the first time since approaching his car. Not a grateful smile or a desperate smile. A professional smile. The expression of someone who'd just been given permission to do what she did best. She slid beneath his Bugatti with tools in hand, ready to prove that knowledge transcends circumstances, that expertise exists in unexpected places, and that sometimes the people society discards are exactly the ones who can save us. Preston stood above her, listening to the sounds of metal against metal, watching his expensive car receive treatment from someone the world had forgotten. $48 million hanging in the balance. Everything he'd worked for depending on a homeless woman's hands. The metallic clanking from beneath Preston's Bugatti sounded like expensive surgery. Melanie's voice echoed from under the chassis, muffled but confident. "Hand me that 3/4-inch wrench." Preston crouched beside the car, scanning the tools spread across his suit jacket. He'd never paid attention to wrench sizes before. They all looked identical to him. "The one with 3/4 stamped on the handle," Melanie called out. Preston found it, sliding the tool under the car toward Melanie's outstretched hand. Her fingers were already black with engine oil, moving with surgical precision around components he couldn't even identify. "Your oil drain plug was deliberately over-tightened," Melanie's voice carried from beneath the engine. "Someone wanted it to strip the threads eventually. Create a leak that requires expensive pan replacement." The systematic nature of Trevor's fraud was becoming clear. Not just counterfeit parts, but sabotage designed to generate future repair bills. Preston had paid for problems that shouldn't exist. How can you tell it was deliberate? Thread damage patterns. When drain plugs are properly tightened, they seat evenly. This one shows gouging from excessive torque. Plus, they used the wrong gasket material. Melanie's diagnostic abilities impressed Preston despite his skepticism. She was identifying specific mechanical failures and their causes with the precision of a forensic investigator. His phone buzzed. Beth again. Mr. Cole, Dr. Harrison's assistant, called. They've moved your presentation to first on the agenda. 2 p.m. sharp. First on the agenda meant no buffer time. No opportunity to reschedule if repairs ran late. Preston's stomach clenched with anxiety. I need that coolant reservoir, Melanie called out. Preston located the emergency coolant container, a bright green jug tucked behind his spare tire. As he handed it to Melanie, he caught sight of her technique. She was bleeding air from the cooling system with practiced efficiency, checking fluid levels, testing pressure points. Where exactly did you learn automotive engineering? Preston asked. MIT. Melanie's answer was matter-of-fact, delivered while she worked. Bachelor's in Mechanical Engineering, Master's in Automotive Systems Design. Preston nearly dropped the coolant container. MIT, one of the world's premier engineering institutions. Melanie had credentials that surpassed most of his TechFlow employees. You went to MIT? Graduated summa cum laude. Specialized in hybrid engine optimization and electronic fuel injection systems. Melanie emerged from under the car, wiping her hands on her jeans. Your thermostat housing is cracked. I can bypass it temporarily, but you'll need proper replacement soon. Preston stared at this homeless woman who possessed an MIT engineering degree. The contradiction was staggering. How did someone with elite education end up living on the streets? If you graduated from MIT, how did you end up here? Melanie's voice carried pain she was trying to hide. Like I said, long story. She returned to work before Preston could ask follow-up questions. But now he understood her expertise wasn't accidental. Melanie had formal training from one of America's best engineering programs. Hand me that flathead screwdriver. Preston complied, studying Melanie's methodology. She worked with systematic precision, testing each repair before moving to the next component. Her knowledge wasn't theoretical. This was hands-on expertise developed through years of practical application. You said you worked in automotive engineering. Where? Dynamic Motors Corporation in Detroit. Senior systems engineer for 3 years. Melanie's voice echoed from under the hood. Designed hybrid powertrains for their luxury vehicle division. Dynamic Motors. Preston recognized the company name from business publications. Major automotive manufacturer, cutting-edge technology, billion-dollar research budgets. Melanie hadn't just worked in automotive engineering. She'd worked at the industry's highest levels. Why did you leave? Melanie's hands stopped moving. The question had hit something painful. I didn't leave. I was removed. Fired. Framed. Melanie's voice was barely audible. Internal politics. Someone wanted my position badly enough to destroy my career. Preston felt a chill of recognition. He understood corporate betrayal. During TechFlow's early growth, he'd faced attempted coups from ambitious employees. The difference was he'd survived his challenges. Melanie apparently hadn't. What happened? Melanie emerged from under the hood again, her expression guarded. They accused me of intellectual property theft. Made it look like I'd sold company secrets to competitors. Had you? Of course not. Melanie's voice carried indignation. I helped develop those systems. Why would I steal my own work? Preston studied her face, looking for deception. He'd become expert at reading people through years of business negotiations. Melanie's anger seemed genuine. Her pain was real. But they had evidence. They manufactured evidence. Melanie's hands clenched into fists. Falsified computer logs, planted files on external drives, created fake communication records. The setup was masterful. Preston recognized the sophistication required for that level of corporate sabotage. Someone with inside knowledge, administrative access, and careful planning. The kind of betrayal that required trusted colleagues. Who did it? Jenna Walsh. My supposed best friend and fellow engineer. Melanie's voice dripped with bitter irony. We'd worked together for 2 years. I trusted her completely. Betrayal by a trusted friend. Preston understood that particular kind of pain. His first business partner had attempted a hostile takeover of TechFlow during their startup phase. The wounds from that betrayal still influenced his trust issues. After they fired me, things got worse, Melanie continued. Someone cleaned out my bank accounts, destroyed my credit, poisoned my professional references. Everyone I considered a friend turned their backs when the evidence looked convincing. The systematic destruction of Melanie's life painted a picture of calculated cruelty. Her colleagues hadn't just wanted her position. They'd wanted her completely eliminated from the industry. Your family believed the accusations. Melanie's voice broke slightly. My parents, my brother, everyone. The evidence was too convincing. Too thorough. Preston felt unexpected sympathy for this woman who'd lost everything to corporate betrayal. Her homelessness wasn't the result of poor choices or lack of ability. She'd been professionally assassinated by people she trusted. I'm sorry, Preston said, meaning it. Melanie looked surprised by his genuine sympathy. Most people assume homeless individuals deserve their circumstances. That we made bad decisions or lack initiative. I'm learning my assumptions might be wrong. Melanie smiled sadly. 3 years ago, I was designing engine systems worth millions of dollars. Today I'm fixing your car on a highway shoulder. Life changes fast when people decide you're disposable. Preston's phone buzzed. 1:35 p.m. 25 minutes until his presentation. But now he found himself more interested in Melanie's story than his business meeting. The cooling system is stabilized, Melanie announced, checking fluid levels one final time. Your oil leak is temporarily sealed. The engine should run normally for several hours. She'd completed the repairs in 15 minutes. Professional service that would have taken Trevor's shop half a day. Preston watched Melanie pack his tools with practiced efficiency. Start her up, Melanie said. Preston turned the ignition. The Bugatti's engine roared to life, temperature gauge showing normal readings. No warning lights. No overheating. The mechanical symphony had returned. How much do I owe you? Preston asked. Nothing. This is professional level work. You deserve compensation. Melanie shook her head. I told you I don't want money. Then what do you want? Melanie was quiet for a long moment, considering her answer. I want someone to believe I'm still capable of fixing things. That my knowledge matters even if my circumstances don't. Her words hit Preston like physical impact. Melanie wasn't seeking charity or handouts. She wanted recognition of her expertise. Acknowledgement that her MIT education and professional experience retained value despite her current situation. I believe you, Preston said simply. Melanie's eyes widened with surprise. You do. You just diagnosed and repaired complex automotive problems in 15 minutes. You identified systematic fraud I never suspected. You have more mechanical knowledge in your little finger than I have in my entire body. For the first time since approaching his car, Melanie looked genuinely moved. Someone had acknowledged her expertise, recognized her capability, seen past her circumstances to her actual knowledge. Thank you, she whispered. Preston realized something had shifted during these 20 minutes of forced proximity. Melanie wasn't a homeless woman who happened to know about cars. She was an MIT-educated engineer whose expertise had saved his career-defining presentation. The California sun reached its midday peak. Traffic continued thundering past. But on Highway 17's shoulder, two strangers had begun to see each other clearly for the first time. Preston's prejudices were cracking. Melanie's hope was returning. And 23 minutes away, a boardroom full of venture capitalists waited to hear Preston's presentation, never knowing their meeting had been saved by someone society had forgotten. Preston closed the Bugatti's hood, engine purring perfectly once again. But instead of rushing toward his meeting, he found himself studying Melanie with new eyes. This wasn't just a homeless woman who'd helped him. This was an MIT graduate whose career had been systematically destroyed. You should go, Melanie said, noticing his hesitation. Your presentation starts soon. In 23 minutes. Preston leaned against his car, making no move to leave. Tell me more about Jenna Walsh. Melanie's expression darkened. Why? Because what happened to you sounds like corporate sabotage. I've dealt with similar situations. Preston pulled out his phone, showing Melanie TechFlow's corporate website. See that man in the board photo? Derek Chen was my first business partner. Tried to steal my company during our series of funding round. Melanie studied the photo, recognition flickering in her eyes. What did you do? Fought back. Had better lawyers, stronger investor relationships. Derek lost. Preston pocketed his phone. But I had resources you didn't. Money for legal defense, political connections, media influence. I had nothing, Melanie said quietly. Once the accusations started, everything disappeared. Bank accounts, credit cards, professional references. Even my apartment lease was cancelled for suspicious financial activity. Preston felt anger building on Melanie's behalf. The systematic destruction of her life required coordination, planning, resources. Someone had wanted her completely eliminated. Walk me through what happened at Dynamic Motors. Specifically. Melanie hesitated, clearly reluctant to revisit painful memories. But something in Preston's tone suggested genuine interest, not idle curiosity. Jenna and I were competing for promotion to Chief Systems Engineer. 60-person department, $150,000 salary increase. Melanie's voice carried old hurt. We'd been friends since MIT. Studied together, supported each other through difficult projects. But friendship ended when career advancement was involved. I thought our friendship was stronger than professional competition. Melanie laughed bitterly. Shows how naive I was. Preston understood that particular naivety. Early in his career, he believed business relationships were based on mutual respect and shared goals. Experience had taught him otherwise. The promotion committee was scheduled to announce their decision on Friday, October 15, 2021, Melanie continued. Tuesday, October 12th, Internal Affairs called me into their office. 3 days before the announcement. Perfect timing to destroy my candidacy. Melanie's hands clenched unconsciously. They showed me printouts of allegedly classified files found on external drives registered to my employee ID. Preston recognized the sophistication required for that level of frame-up. Someone with administrative access planted evidence. Jenna had administrative privileges for our shared project databases. She could access my login credentials, create false activity logs, plant files anywhere in the system. The betrayal was elegant in its cruelty, using friendship and trust as weapons. Preston had experienced similar betrayal, but his had been unsuccessful. Melanie's had destroyed her completely. What were the alleged stolen files? Hybrid engine optimization algorithms I developed over 2 years, worth approximately $15 million in research and development costs. Melanie's voice carried professional pride despite the circumstances. They claimed I'd sold the data to German automotive competitors. Had you communicated with German companies? Of course. Professional conferences, technical journals, industry collaboration, normal engineering activities. Melanie shook her head. But Jenna twisted innocent professional correspondence into evidence of corporate espionage. Preston's phone buzzed. 1:42 p.m. 18 minutes until his presentation. But Melanie's story had captured his complete attention. The parallels to his own corporate struggles were striking. What happened after Internal Affairs confronted you? They suspended me pending investigation. Escorted me from the building that same day. Melanie's voice cracked slightly. Jenna offered to clean out my desk. Said she'd bring my personal items to my apartment. She volunteered to handle your belongings. My supposed best friend, being helpful during my crisis. Melanie's irony was sharp. I was grateful. Thought she was supporting me through false accusations. Preston could see where this was heading. Jenna had volunteered to access Melanie's workspace, probably to plant additional evidence or remove anything that might prove Melanie's innocence. 2 days later, police arrived at my apartment with search warrants, Melanie continued. They found classified dynamic motors files on my personal laptop. Files I'd never seen before. Planted during Jenna's helpful desk cleaning visit. Obviously. But try proving that in court when the evidence shows your fingerprints, your laptop, your apartment. Melanie's frustration was palpable. The setup was airtight. Preston understood the helplessness Melanie must have felt. Fighting accusations backed by manufactured evidence required resources she didn't possess. Lawyers, investigators, character witnesses. All expensive. All beyond reach for someone whose assets had been frozen pending criminal investigation. The bank account theft happened simultaneously? Within hours of my suspension, Melanie's voice turned bitter. Someone with detailed knowledge of my financial habits, security questions, spending patterns. They knew exactly how to circumvent fraud protections. Inside knowledge again. Jenna and I had shared financial information during our MIT years. Split expenses, covered each other's bills, knew each other's banking details. Melanie stared at the highway traffic. I'd trusted her with everything. The systematic nature of Melanie's destruction was breathtaking. Professional sabotage, evidence planting, financial theft, character assassination. All executed by someone with intimate knowledge of Melanie's life and vulnerabilities. Your family believed the accusations? The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showing suspicious transfers. Police finding classified files in my possession. Media reports about corporate espionage. Melanie's voice broke. My parents were horrified. My brother changed his phone number. Everyone assumed I was guilty. Preston felt deep sympathy for Melanie's isolation. Losing career and finances was devastating. Losing family support was cruel beyond measure. Where did you go after losing your apartment? Detroit homeless shelters initially. But word travels fast in professional circles. Other engineers recognized me, whispered about the scandal. Melanie pulled her knit cap lower. I couldn't find work anywhere in Michigan. So you came to California, hoping distance would help. But Jenna's character assassination was thorough. Professional references, industry contacts, even online engineering forums. My reputation was destroyed nationally. Preston's anger intensified on Melanie's behalf. Jenna hadn't just stolen Melanie's job. She'd systematically eliminated Melanie's ability to work anywhere in her chosen field. You've been homeless for 3 years? 3 years, 1 month, 12 days. Melanie's precision was heartbreaking. I keep track because someday I want to calculate exactly how much Jenna's betrayal cost me. Preston's phone buzzed again. Beth's voice filled the air through his car's speaker system. Mr. Cole, Dr. Harrison is asking about your arrival time. Tell him 5 minutes, Preston responded without thinking. Melanie looked confused. Your meeting is in Palo Alto. That's 30 minutes from here. Preston realized he'd lost track of time during Melanie's story. Her systematic destruction had absorbed his complete attention. The presentation that had seemed life or death important now felt secondary to understanding Melanie's injustice. I should go, Preston said, but made no move toward his car. You should, Melanie agreed. $48 million is serious money. How did you know about the acquisition amount? I read TechFlow's quarterly reports. Your company interests me from an engineering perspective. Melanie smiled sadly. I follow technology sector developments. Helps me feel connected to the professional world I lost. Preston stared at this homeless woman who read his company's financial reports for intellectual stimulation. Melanie maintained her engineering knowledge despite having no professional outlet for her expertise. What do you think about TechFlow's acquisition strategy? Smart diversification into artificial intelligence. Your target companies complement your existing software architecture. Melanie's analysis was immediate and informed. The acquisition price reflects fair market valuation plus strategic premium. Preston was getting business analysis from someone living on the streets. Analysis that matched his own strategic thinking. Melanie's intellect remained sharp despite 3 years of survival-focused existence. "You should be working in technology again," Preston said. "With what references? What credentials would survive background checks?" Melanie's voice carried exhausted defeat. "Jenna destroyed everything. I can't even use my MIT degree because any verification process reveals the dynamic motors scandal." Preston understood Melanie's professional catch. 22. Her expertise was evident, but formal employment required background verification she couldn't pass. The corporate world had become permanently closed to her. The California sun beat down on Highway 17's shoulder. 2 strangers had shared painful truths about corporate betrayal and professional destruction. Preston's perspective on homeless individuals had transformed completely. Melanie's hope for recognition had been unexpectedly fulfilled. But 18 minutes remained until Preston's career-defining presentation, and 30 minutes of driving stood between him and the boardroom where venture capitalists waited to hear his strategic vision. The moment of choice was approaching. Rush to save his business deal, or stay to help someone whose expertise could reshape everything he thought he knew about worth, wisdom, and the assumptions that blind successful people to extraordinary individuals hidden in society's margins. Preston looked at his phone again. 1:44 p.m. 16 minutes until his presentation. 30 minutes of driving through Saturday afternoon traffic. The mathematics were unforgiving. He would be late. Possibly very late. But something had shifted inside him during Melanie's story. The $48 million acquisition suddenly seemed less important than the brilliant woman standing beside his car. Someone whose expertise had been stolen, whose life had been destroyed, whose potential remained trapped by circumstances. "I'm not going," Preston announced. Melanie blinked in surprise. "What?" "The meeting. I'm not going." Preston leaned against his Bugatti, decision crystallizing in his mind. "There will be other acquisitions. Other opportunities. But right now, I want to hear more about your engineering work." "You're making a mistake." Melanie's voice carried concern, not gratitude. $48 million. Your board members. Dr. Harrison with his $300 million in investment capital. Preston was touched by Melanie's worry for his business interests. Even after sharing her painful story, she was concerned about his professional success. When was the last time someone had shown him that kind of selfless consideration? "Tell me about your hybrid engine designs," Preston said, settling onto the Bugatti's hood. "The work that was allegedly stolen." Melanie hesitated, studying his face for signs of mockery or condescension. Finding none, she slowly moved closer. Dual-mode optimization systems. The challenge was seamlessly integrating electric and gasoline power sources without energy loss during transitions. Melanie's voice gained strength as she discussed her expertise. Most hybrid systems sacrifice efficiency during mode switching. Preston listened with genuine fascination. Melanie's explanation revealed deep understanding of complex engineering principles. Her stolen work had been genuinely innovative. "How did you solve the transition problem?" "Predictive algorithms based on driving pattern analysis." The system learned individual driver habits and anticipated optimal switching points. Melanie's eyes lit up with intellectual excitement. "Instead of reactive mode changes, we achieved proactive optimization." "That's brilliant." It increased fuel efficiency by 18% over existing hybrid technologies. Pride crept into Melanie's voice. Dynamic Motors estimated the patent value at $15 million minimum. Preston understood why Jenna had targeted Melanie's work. $15 million in intellectual property represented career-making innovation. The kind of breakthrough that guaranteed promotion, recognition, financial reward. You must have documentation. Notes, drafts, development records. All confiscated during the investigation. Everything on company computers, cloud storage, even my personal backup drives. Melanie's expression darkened. Jenna made sure no evidence remained to prove I developed the algorithms. The thoroughness of Jenna's sabotage was remarkable. She hadn't just stolen Melanie's work. She'd eliminated all proof of Melanie's authorship, leaving herself positioned to claim credit for the innovation. But you remember the technical specifications? Every line of code, every algorithm parameter, every optimization sequence. Melanie tapped her temple. They can steal my documentation, but they can't steal my memory. Preston felt excitement building. Melanie retained complete knowledge of $15 million automotive technology. Knowledge that existed nowhere else except in her mind. Have you considered reconstructing the work? With what resources? Software development requires expensive tools, testing equipment, prototype vehicles. Melanie's laugh was bitter. I can barely afford food. Equipment costs millions. Preston's business mind was racing. Melanie possessed unique technological assets with proven commercial value. Her homelessness was artificial scarcity created by corporate sabotage, not genuine lack of capability. What if resources weren't an issue? Melanie looked at him suspiciously. What do you mean? TechFlow Industries has software development capabilities, clean room environments for intellectual property development, legal teams for patent protection. Preston's voice gained enthusiasm. What if we could recreate your hybrid optimization systems? You're not serious. Completely serious. Preston pulled out his phone, scrolling through TechFlow's departmental contacts. We have automotive partnerships through our industrial IoT division, access to testing facilities, development budgets, prototype manufacturing. Melanie stared at him with something approaching hope mixed with disbelief. You would invest company resources based on my word? Without documentation. Without verification. I just watched you diagnose and repair complex automotive systems in 15 minutes. I listened to you analyze TechFlow's acquisition strategy with MBA-level sophistication. Preston met her eyes directly. Your expertise is self-evident. For the first time since approaching his car, Melanie looked genuinely emotional. Not the controlled pain she'd shown while recounting her betrayal, but raw vulnerability at the possibility of professional redemption. Nobody has believed in my abilities for 3 years, Melanie whispered. Then they were fools. Preston's phone rang. Dr. Harrison's personal number. The venture capitalist was calling directly, probably wondering about Preston's delayed arrival. Dr. Harrison, I apologize for the delay. Preston, we're concerned about your timeline. The board has other commitments this afternoon. Preston looked at Melanie, who was watching his conversation with anxious attention. She understood the stakes involved. $48 million in acquisition funding. Strategic partnerships worth hundreds of millions. His entire business trajectory hanging in the balance. Dr. Harrison, I need to reschedule. Silence on the other end. Then, reschedule? Today's presentation has been planned for 6 weeks. Family emergency, Preston lied smoothly. Unexpected situation requiring immediate attention. I see. Dr. Harrison's tone carried disappointment and suspicion. The acquisition timeline is aggressive, Preston. Delays create complications. I understand. Would Monday morning work for the board? Monday, we're reviewing 3 competing proposals. Your window for first consideration may have passed. Preston understood the subtext. Missing today's presentation meant losing primary position in the acquisition process. Other companies would present their offers first, potentially securing the deal before TechFlow received consideration. I'll call you Monday to discuss alternatives, Preston said. Very well. I hope your family emergency resolves satisfactorily. Preston ended the call, looking at Melanie's stricken expression. You just sacrificed $48 million for me, Melanie said quietly. I postponed a business meeting for someone whose expertise could be worth more than $48 million. Preston's conviction surprised him. Your hybrid optimization technology has broader applications than automotive systems. Energy management, industrial automation, smart grid optimization. Melanie's eyes widened. You see commercial applications beyond cars? I see revolutionary efficiency technology applicable across multiple industries. Preston's excitement was building. Licensing deals worth hundreds of millions. Patent portfolios that could fund entire research divisions. If we could actually develop it. When we develop it. Preston's certainty was absolute. Melanie, you're not just a homeless woman with automotive knowledge. You're a MIT-trained engineer with breakthrough technology trapped by circumstances. The potential value is enormous. Melanie was quiet for long moments, processing Preston's offer. Someone was offering her professional redemption, recognition of her expertise, resources to rebuild her stolen career. Why would you take this risk? Melanie asked finally. Because risk and opportunity are partners. Because conventional thinking led me to trust Trevor for 3 years while he systematically defrauded me. Preston gestured toward his repaired car. Because in 20 minutes, you've shown me more genuine expertise than 3 years of expensive professional service. Melanie smiled for the second time since approaching his car. Not the professional smile from earlier, but something warmer, more personal. The expression of someone who'd found unexpected human connection after years of isolation. I haven't talked about my engineering work with anyone since Dynamic Motors, Melanie admitted. Having someone understand the technical complexities, appreciate the innovation potential. It feels good to be seen for who you really are. Exactly. Melanie's voice carried wonder. You're the first person in 3 years to treat me like an engineer instead of a homeless woman. Preston realized their conversation had shifted from business opportunity to human connection. Melanie wasn't just brilliant technology resource. She was someone who'd been stripped of professional identity and was slowly reclaiming it through their interaction. What was your favorite project at Dynamic Motors? Preston asked. Melanie's face brightened. Advanced battery management systems for electric vehicle fleets. Optimizing charge cycles to extend battery life while maximizing performance. Complex optimization problem. Incredibly complex. Battery chemistry, thermal management, usage pattern prediction, grid integration. Melanie's enthusiasm was infectious. We achieved 40% improvement in battery longevity. Preston found himself genuinely fascinated by Melanie's technical knowledge. Her engineering expertise was deep, broad, innovative. The kind of intellectual capability that created billion-dollar companies. The California afternoon sun cast long shadows across Highway 17. 2 strangers had discovered mutual respect, shared understanding, and the beginning of something that transcended their different circumstances. Preston had found an engineer whose expertise could transform his company. Melanie had found someone who recognized her worth beyond her situation. But their moment of connection was about to face its first serious test. The sound of approaching sirens cut through Preston and Melanie's conversation like a blade. 2 patrol cars appeared in the distance, emergency lights flashing, heading directly toward their location on Highway 17's shoulder. Melanie's face went pale. Someone called the police. Preston looked around, confused. They weren't breaking any laws. His car was legally parked on the shoulder, hazard lights activated. Emergency repairs were permitted. Why would? Homeless woman harassing wealthy businessman. That's what someone reported. Melanie was already backing away from his car. I need to go. Wait. Preston stepped toward her. You haven't done anything wrong. That doesn't matter. Melanie's voice carried 3 years of bitter experience. Police see homeless individual near expensive car, they assume theft, harassment, or worse. The patrol cars slowed, one positioning behind Preston's Bugatti, the other pulling alongside. 2 officers emerged, hands resting casually but meaningfully on their weapons. Their body language suggested they were responding to a potential crime in progress. Good afternoon, sir. The lead officer approached Preston with professional courtesy. We received reports of a suspicious individual bothering motorists on this section of highway. Preston looked at Melanie, who was now standing 20 feet away, hands visible, posture non-threatening. Everything about her demeanor screamed experience with police encounters. This woman helped repair my car, Preston explained. She's an automotive engineer. The officers exchanged glances. One of them suppressed what might have been a smirk. An automotive engineer? The second officer's tone carried obvious skepticism. Ma'am, do you have identification? Melanie slowly reached into her jacket pocket, producing a worn wallet. I have a California ID. Any recent addresses? Employment verification. I'm currently between jobs. Preston watched the officer's attitudes shift from professional courtesy to social profiling. Melanie's lack of traditional markers of success was transforming her from helpful citizen to potential problem. Sir, the lead officer turned to Preston. Has this individual asked you for money? Attempted to sell you anything? Made you feel threatened or uncomfortable? She repaired my overheated engine. Fixed problems my regular mechanic couldn't solve. Preston's voice carried growing frustration. She's probably saved me thousands in unnecessary repairs. We've had multiple reports this week about aggressive panhandling on this highway section, the officer continued, ignoring Preston's explanation. Individuals approaching stranded motorists, claiming they can help, then demanding payment. Preston realized what was happening. Someone had profiled Melanie as a troublemaker based purely on her appearance. Homeless equals dangerous. Homeless equals criminal. The same assumptions Preston had made 20 minutes earlier. Ma'am, we're going to need you to move along, the second officer directed toward Melanie. This highway section isn't appropriate for pedestrian activity. She wasn't panhandling, Preston protested. She was providing legitimate automotive service. Sir, we appreciate your patience with this situation. The lead officer's tone suggested Preston was being manipulated by a clever scam artist. These individuals can be very convincing. They often claim specialized knowledge to gain trust. Melanie caught Preston's eye and shook her head slightly. A warning. Don't make this worse. Don't escalate. Just let it happen. But Preston couldn't let it happen. 20 minutes ago, he would have agreed with the officer's assessment. Would have been grateful for their intervention. Now he understood they were destroying something precious. Someone precious. Officers, I'd like to clarify something. Preston pulled out his phone, opening TechFlow's corporate website. I'm Preston Cole, CEO of TechFlow Industries. This woman diagnosed complex automotive fraud that my expensive mechanic missed. Her expertise saved my company millions. The officers looked at his phone screen, recognizing TechFlow's logo from local business news. Their attitude shifted slightly toward respectful attention. That's very generous, Mr. Cole. But we have protocols for highway safety. The lead officer glanced at Melanie with unconcealed suspicion. Transient individuals pose risks to public safety. Transient individual? Preston's anger was building. She graduated summa cum laude from MIT. She's a senior automotive engineer with breakthrough technology patents. Sir, many homeless individuals create elaborate stories about their backgrounds. The second officer's voice carried practiced patience. We've heard claims about PhD degrees, professional careers, family wealth. It's common pattern. Preston looked at Melanie, who was watching this exchange with resigned acceptance. She'd been through this before. Multiple times. Her expertise dismissed, her education questioned, her worth measured solely by her circumstances. Ma'am, we're going to need you to walk back toward the San Jose city limits, the lead officer directed. This highway section is outside your area. My area. Melanie's voice was quiet but sharp. What exactly is my designated area? Areas with appropriate services for individuals in your situation. The euphemisms were making Preston sick. Her situation meant homeless. Appropriate services meant shelters, soup kitchens, places where society stored people it didn't want to see. She's coming with me, Preston announced suddenly. Everyone stared at him. The officers, Melanie, passing motorists who'd slowed to observe the police activity. Sir. The lead officer's confusion was evident. Melanie is my new consulting engineer. She's accompanying me to my corporate headquarters for project discussions. Preston's voice carried executive authority. Her presence here is business-related. Melanie's eyes widened with shock. Preston was improvising protection for her, using his corporate status as a shield against police profiling. Mr. Cole, we appreciate your... The second officer started. Gentlemen, unless Melanie has committed a specific crime, I believe our business here is concluded. Preston's tone had shifted to the voice he used with difficult board members. Polite but immovable. Thank you for your concern about highway safety. The officers found themselves in an awkward position. They'd responded to reports about a suspicious homeless individual. Instead, they discovered a tech CEO vouching for someone he claimed was his consulting engineer. We'll need to file a report about this incident, the lead officer said finally. Of course. Please note that TechFlow Industries appreciates the rapid response to highway safety concerns. Preston was covering their retreat with corporate diplomacy. Officer. Detective Coleman. Ray Coleman. Detective Coleman, if you need any follow-up information, please contact my assistant Beth Martinez at TechFlow. Preston handed him a business card. She can verify Melanie's consulting arrangement. Preston was creating documentation for a fictional employment relationship, giving Melanie corporate cover for future police encounters. The improvisation was remarkable. Ma'am, Detective Coleman addressed Melanie directly for the first time. Is this arrangement voluntary? The question revealed their continued suspicion. Even with Preston's vouching, they assumed Melanie might be coerced, manipulated, or trafficked. Yes, Melanie said simply. You're free to leave at any time. TechFlow has no legal authority to detain you. I understand. Detective Coleman studied her face, looking for signs of distress or deception. Finding neither, he stepped back toward his patrol car. Have a good afternoon, Mr. Cole. Ma'am. The officers departed, leaving Preston and Melanie alone on the highway shoulder. The crisis had passed, but its impact lingered. Their fragile connection had been tested by external prejudice and social assumptions. You didn't have to do that, Melanie said quietly. Yes, I did. Preston's anger was still burning. They were treating you like a criminal for being homeless. Like your expertise meant nothing because of your circumstances. That's how the world works for people like me. Melanie's voice carried exhausted acceptance. I'm used to it. Well, I'm not used to it. And I won't accept it. Preston was pacing beside his car. You just solved problems that stumped my expensive mechanic. You analyzed my company's strategy with MBA-level sophistication. And they wanted to arrest you for existing. Melanie watched Preston's righteous anger with something approaching amazement. Someone was furious on her behalf. Someone was defending her worth against social prejudice. The consulting engineer story, Melanie said. You made that up to protect me. I made it up to give you corporate legitimacy. But... Preston stopped pacing, looking directly at her. What if it wasn't fiction? What do you mean? What if TechFlow actually hired you as a consulting engineer? Legitimate employment, regular salary, resources to develop your hybrid optimization technology. Melanie stared at him in disbelief. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a career resurrection. Preston's voice carried growing excitement. Your expertise, TechFlow's resources, proper legal protection for your intellectual property. Based on 20 minutes of conversation on a highway? Based on demonstrated knowledge, proven problem-solving ability, and innovative thinking my company needs. Preston pulled out his phone. I'm calling Beth right now. Setting up employment paperwork for Monday morning. Melanie felt tears forming in her eyes. 3 years of homelessness, professional exile, and social invisibility. Now someone was offering her everything she'd lost. Recognition, resources, respect. But something in her expression had changed during the police encounter. A protective distance. Wariness that hadn't been there before. Preston, Melanie said carefully, you don't really know me. I know enough. No, you don't. Melanie's voice carried new tension. You know my technical expertise. You know my sob story about corporate betrayal. But you don't know who I really am. Preston sensed danger approaching but couldn't identify its source. What do you mean? Melanie looked at Preston with something that might have been regret. As if she was about to say something that would shatter the connection they'd built. Something that would destroy his faith in her expertise and worth. The California sun was beginning its afternoon descent. Traffic continued thundering past on Highway 17. And two people who'd found unexpected understanding were about to discover that sometimes, protection requires pushing away the very people trying to help. Preston stared at Melanie, her warning echoing in his mind. You don't really know me. The words carried weight that made him suddenly question everything about their interaction. What are you trying to tell me? Preston asked carefully. Melanie looked away, toward the distant San Jose skyline. Her hands were trembling slightly, and not from the November chill. The police encounter. It reminded me why keeping distance is safer. Safer for who? For you. Melanie's voice was barely audible. Preston, I've been living on the streets for 3 years. Do you understand what that means? What I've had to do to survive? Preston felt cold dread forming in his stomach. He'd assumed Melanie's homelessness was simply unfortunate circumstances. Professional exile leading to temporary hardship. But 3 years on the streets changed people. Required compromises. Created survival strategies that might not align with corporate employment. Tell me, Preston said. Melanie was quiet for long moments, internal struggle visible on her face. Finally, she spoke. 6 months ago, I was arrested for theft. Preston's world shifted. The brilliant MIT engineer, the innovative technology expert, the woman whose expertise had saved his meeting. She had a criminal record. What kind of theft? Food. From a grocery store in downtown San Jose. Melanie's voice carried shame. I hadn't eaten in 4 days. Took bread, peanut butter, milk. $23 worth of merchandise. Preston exhaled slowly. Shoplifting food wasn't the same as corporate embezzlement or violent crime. But any criminal record would complicate employment background checks. Were you convicted? Charges dropped after I spent 2 nights in county jail. Store manager decided not to press charges. Melanie looked at him directly. But the arrest is still on my record. Any background check reveals it. Preston's business mind was calculating. Employment lawyers could handle misdemeanor charges, especially theft driven by hunger rather than greed. This wasn't an insurmountable obstacle. That's manageable, Preston said. TechFlow's legal team can address background check issues. There's more. Melanie's voice cracked. Last winter, I was staying in abandoned buildings with other homeless individuals. Trespassing, technically illegal camping, multiple citations for vagrancy. Preston understood Melanie was dismantling the professional image she'd carefully presented, revealing the harsh realities of street survival that might make corporate employment impossible. Melanie, these are survival choices, not character flaws. Are they? Melanie's eyes flashed with anger. What about the time I stole tools from an auto repair shop? Needed them for side work, couldn't afford to purchase them. Took them from Frank Martinez's shop while he was helping customers. Preston remembered Frank Martinez. Melanie had mentioned working at his auto repair shop. Now she was confessing to stealing from someone who'd tried to help her. Did you return them? Eventually. But stealing from someone who was kind to me. Melanie shook her head. That's who I've become. Someone who takes things that don't belong to her. Preston felt the foundation of his respect for Melanie beginning to shake. Not because of her survival choices, but because she seemed determined to destroy his faith in her character. Why are you telling me this? Because you're offering me something I can't accept. Melanie's voice carried fierce determination. A corporate position requires character references, background verification, professional integrity. I don't have those things anymore. You have expertise. Expertise stolen through theft and deception. Melanie's laugh was bitter. I learned about Trevor's counterfeit part scheme because I've been working illegally in auto repair shops. Cash payments, no employment verification, no taxes paid. I'm as much of a fraud as he is. Preston realized Melanie was pushing him away, protecting him from association with someone whose survival had required compromising legal and ethical boundaries. She was sacrificing their connection to preserve his professional reputation. You think I should withdraw the job offer? I think you should run back to your corporate world before associating with me destroys your credibility. Melanie was backing toward the highway's shoulder's edge. Find another engineer. Someone with clean records and proper references. Preston watched Melanie preparing to disappear from his life. Someone who'd shown him extraordinary expertise, genuine human connection, and intellectual capability beyond his expectations. Now she was eliminating herself from consideration because survival had required ethical compromises. His phone buzzed. Text message from Beth. Dr. Harrison called again. Board meeting can be rescheduled for Sunday morning if you're available. Second chance at the acquisition. Sunday morning. Dr. Harrison was offering Preston redemption for missing today's presentation. The $48 million deal could still proceed. His career trajectory could remain intact. All he had to do was let Melanie walk away. Preston looked at the text message, then at Melanie, who was watching his face for signs that he was reconsidering his offer. That her confessions had convinced him she was too risky for corporate association. Melanie, can I ask you something? What? When you stole food from that grocery store, were you planning to pay for it eventually? Melanie blinked, surprised by the question. Yes. I kept track of what I took. Planned to pay it back when I found work. And the tools from Frank's shop? I returned them within a week. Left money for wear and tear. Melanie's voice was confused. Why does that matter? Because it tells me about your character. Preston stepped closer to her. You stole because you were starving, not because you're a thief. You took tools for work, not personal gain. You plan to make restitution because that's who you are fundamentally. Preston, you're not understanding. I understand perfectly. Preston's voice carried growing conviction. 3 years of impossible circumstances forced you to make survival choices. But every choice was temporary, reversible, motivated by necessity rather than greed. Melanie stared at him with something approaching disbelief. You're defending theft. I'm defending someone whose moral compass remained intact despite impossible circumstances. Preston pulled out his phone again. Beth, I need employment paperwork prepared for Monday morning. New consulting engineer position. Mr. Cole. Beth's voice carried confusion. Should I also confirm the Sunday board meeting with Dr. Harrison? Preston looked at Melanie, who was watching him make a choice that would determine both their futures. Choose the safe corporate path or risk everything on someone society had written off. Cancel the Sunday meeting, Preston said. Reschedule for next week. I have more important priorities right now. Melanie's eyes widened. You're choosing me over the acquisition? I'm choosing integrity over convenience. Preston ended the call with Beth. Melanie, 3 years ago, Jenna Walsh stole your professional life through systematic betrayal. She used friendship and trust as weapons against you. What does that have to do with? I won't complete her destruction by abandoning you when you need support most. Preston's voice carried absolute certainty. Your expertise saved my $48 million meeting. Your honesty about survival choices shows character most people lack. Your determination to protect my reputation demonstrates loyalty I rarely encounter. Melanie was crying now, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand what you're risking. I understand exactly what I'm risking. And exactly what I'm gaining. Preston stepped closer to her. Melanie, I'm offering you more than employment. I'm offering you partnership. Your hybrid optimization technology, developed under TechFlow's resources, with proper legal protection and fair profit sharing. Partnership. Equal collaboration. Your innovation, my resources, shared success. Preston's excitement was building. We'll expose Trevor's fraud, develop your stolen technology legitimately, and build something extraordinary together. Melanie looked at Preston with wonder and terror. Someone was offering her everything she'd lost. Professional resurrection, financial security, recognition of her worth. But accepting meant trusting again. Risking another devastating betrayal. "What if I disappoint you?" Melanie whispered. "What if you don't?" Preston countered. "What if we create something remarkable together? What if your expertise transforms my company? What if this highway breakdown was the best thing that ever happened to both of us?" Melanie studied Preston's face, searching for signs of deception or hidden agenda, finding only genuine conviction and unexpected faith in her potential. "I haven't trusted anyone since Jenna's betrayal," Melanie admitted. "I haven't trusted anyone's expertise over my own assumptions until 20 minutes ago." Preston held out his hand to her. "Maybe we're both overdue for taking risks on the right people." Melanie looked at his outstretched hand. 3 years of isolation, survival, and professional exile had led to this moment. Someone believing in her worth. Someone willing to risk his own success for her redemption. The California afternoon sun cast long shadows across Highway 17's shoulder. Two strangers faced a choice that would determine whether expertise could overcome circumstances, whether partnership could heal betrayal, and whether love, in all its forms, could truly conquer the assumptions that divide us. Preston's hand remained extended, waiting for Melanie's decision. Everything they'd built in 30 minutes hung in the balance. Trust or retreat. Partnership or isolation. Hope or the safety of expecting nothing. The choice was Melanie's to make. Melanie stared at Preston's outstretched hand for what felt like eternity. 3 years of betrayal, survival, and abandonment had taught her that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But this man had defended her against police profiling, sacrificed his business meeting, and offered partnership when she'd confessed her survival crimes. Slowly, carefully, Melanie reached out and took his hand. "I'm terrified," she whispered. "So am I," Preston admitted. "But being terrified together seems better than being safe alone." The moment their hands connected, something shifted in both of them. Melanie felt the first spark of hope she'd experienced since Jenna's betrayal. Preston felt the satisfaction of choosing human potential over corporate safety. "What happens now?" Melanie asked. "Now we build something extraordinary." Preston pulled out his phone again. "Beth, I need you to contact our legal department. Prepare consulting agreements for Melanie Castellanos, MIT graduate, automotive systems engineer." "Mr. Cole, should I ask about her employment history?" Preston looked at Melanie, who nodded encouragingly. "Tell them she's a referral from my personal network. All background verification goes through me directly." "And the Friday board meeting about the acquisition?" "Reschedule for next Friday. I want time to prepare a different kind of presentation." Preston's voice carried new excitement. Something about TechFlow's expansion into automotive technology licensing. Preston ended the call, turning back to Melanie with growing enthusiasm. "Your hybrid optimization systems. Can you recreate the technical specifications? Every algorithm, every parameter, every line of code." Melanie's confidence was returning. "Give me proper development tools and 6 months. I'll build something better than what Dynamic Motors stole." 6 months. Preston laughed. "Melanie, I'm giving you a team of 12 software engineers, unlimited development budget, and access to our industrial testing facilities. How about 3 months? Melanie felt dizzy with possibility. Resources she'd dreamed about for 3 years, suddenly within reach. Professional respect, adequate funding, collaborative support. Everything Jenna's betrayal had destroyed. "There's something else we need to address," Preston said seriously. "Trevor." Melanie's expression hardened. "The fraud scheme needs exposure." "Agreed. But I want your help documenting everything. Your automotive expertise to identify all the counterfeit parts, create evidence packages, build legal cases." Preston's voice carried determination. "Trevor's been defrauding customers for years. Other people deserve justice too. You want me to be the key witness? I want you to be the expert witness who puts him out of business permanently. Preston's anger at Trevor's systematic fraud had been building all afternoon. Your testimony, combined with documented evidence, will shut down his operation completely. Melanie realized Preston was offering her something beyond professional redemption. He was giving her the opportunity to use her expertise for justice, to protect other victims from the fraud she'd uncovered. I'd like that, Melanie said simply. Preston's phone rang. Dr. Harrison again. Preston, I wanted to follow up about the Sunday meeting opportunity. Dr. Harrison, I appreciate the flexibility, but I'm pursuing a different strategic direction. Preston's voice carried executive confidence. TechFlow is expanding into automotive technology partnerships. The acquisition timeline has changed. Automotive technology? That's outside your core competencies. Not anymore. We've just retained a senior consulting engineer with breakthrough expertise in hybrid optimization systems. Preston winked at Melanie. Someone with MIT credentials and industry experience that will transform our capabilities. Melanie felt tears forming again. Preston was presenting her as a strategic asset, not a charity case. Her expertise was becoming the foundation for his company's new direction. Can you send me preliminary technical specifications? Dr. Harrison asked. Within 2 weeks. My consulting engineer needs time to prepare comprehensive documentation. Preston was buying Melanie time to recreate her stolen work. The technology has applications in automotive, energy management, and industrial automation. Impressive scope. I'd like to meet this engineer. Preston looked at Melanie, who nodded confidently. That can be arranged. Excellent. Keep me informed about your progress. Preston ended the call, grinning at Melanie. You just became TechFlow's secret weapon for retaining venture capital support. No pressure, Melanie laughed. But her laugh carried joy instead of bitterness for the first time in 3 years. Melanie, there's something I want to give you. Preston opened his car's glove compartment, retrieving a business checkbook. Consider this a signing bonus. He wrote quickly, tearing off a check for $50,000. Melanie stared at the amount, speechless. $50,000 represented more money than she'd seen in 3 years. Enough for housing, food, clothing, basic stability. I can't accept this, Melanie protested. It's not charity. It's an advance on your consulting fees. Preston's voice carried business authority. Your hybrid optimization technology will generate millions in licensing revenue. This is a reasonable initial investment. Preston. Melanie, you fixed my car, saved my meeting, exposed systematic fraud, and agreed to help build TechFlow's automotive division. Preston's enumeration was matter of fact. $50,000 is conservative compensation for value delivered. Melanie looked at the check, then at Preston's face. He wasn't offering charity or pity money. This was professional payment for professional services. Recognition that her expertise had monetary value. Thank you, Melanie whispered, accepting the check. Thank you for trusting me. Preston's voice carried genuine gratitude. For taking a risk on partnership. For believing we can build something meaningful together. Melanie carefully folded the check, placing it in her wallet next to her worn identification. Tomorrow, she could find housing, buy proper clothes, establish stability for the first time since Jenna's betrayal. What's our timeline for exposing Trevor? Melanie asked. Monday morning. I'm calling my attorney, filing complaints with automotive regulatory agencies, and scheduling meetings with affected customers. Preston's voice carried executive determination. By Wednesday, Trevor's business license will be under investigation. And my technology development starts Tuesday. I'm giving you office space, development team assignments, and unlimited access to our technical resources. Preston was mentally organizing logistics. 6 months from now, TechFlow will own patents on the most advanced hybrid optimization technology in the industry. Melanie felt the future opening before her like sunrise after endless night. Professional resurrection, financial security, recognition of her worth. But more than that, she'd found someone who believed in her potential when everyone else had written her off. Preston, why did you really help me today? Preston considered the question seriously. Because 20 minutes ago, you reminded me that expertise exists in unexpected places. That assumptions blind us to extraordinary people. That worth isn't determined by circumstances. And now I think today was the luckiest breakdown of my life. Preston smiled. Finding you changed everything. My perspective on success, my understanding of value, my appreciation for what really matters. Melanie realized their connection had evolved beyond business partnership. They'd found something rare and precious. Mutual respect, shared purpose, and genuine care for each other's well-being. One more question, Melanie said. The Sunday board meeting you canceled. Was that really worth $48 million? Melanie, $48 million was one acquisition. What we're building together could be worth 10 times that amount. Preston's voice carried absolute conviction. Your expertise, properly developed and protected, represents breakthrough technology with unlimited commercial potential. You really believe that? I know that. Preston started his car, engine purring perfectly thanks to Melanie's repairs. Question is, are you ready to prove it to the world? Melanie looked at this man who'd chosen partnership over profit, risk over safety, human potential over corporate convenience. Someone who'd seen past her circumstances to recognize her true capabilities. I'm ready, Melanie said with quiet confidence. As they drove towards San Jose together, the California sun began setting over Silicon Valley. Two strangers had become partners. Professional exile had transformed into opportunity. Betrayal had been overcome by trust. Melanie Castellanos, homeless for 3 years, 1 month, and 12 days, was going home. Not to a place, but to a future where her knowledge mattered, her expertise was valued, and her worth was recognized by someone who'd chosen to see beyond appearances. Preston Cole had found something more valuable than any acquisition. He'd found a partner whose brilliance would transform his company, and a person whose resilience had taught him what really mattered in business and life. The Bugatti's engine sang smoothly down Highway 101, carrying two people who discovered that sometimes the most important meetings happen on highway shoulders, that the most valuable expertise comes from unexpected sources, and that love, in all its forms, truly can conquer the prejudices that blind us to extraordinary individuals hiding in plain sight. Behind them, Trevor Hawkins' fraudulent repair shop was about to face justice. Ahead of them, breakthrough technology would soon bear Melanie's name in patent filings. And between them, a partnership had formed that would prove expertise transcends circumstances, worth defies appearances, and human connection creates possibilities that money alone could never buy. The breakdown had become a breakthrough. The ending was really a beginning. And love, in all its magnificent forms, had conquered everything that tried to keep two extraordinary people apart. 6 months later, Melanie adjusted her navy blue blazer and checked her reflection in the conference room window. 6 months ago, she'd been wearing torn jeans and a stained red sweater on a highway shoulder. Today, she was presenting breakthrough technology to the largest automotive manufacturers in North America. Nervous? Preston asked, joining her at the window. Excited, Melanie corrected, smile brightening her face. Today we announce Melanie Tech optimization systems to the world. The technology she'd recreated had exceeded even Preston's optimistic projections. 3 months of intensive development with TechFlow's engineering team had produced hybrid optimization algorithms 18% more efficient than her original dynamic motors work. The patent filings bore Melanie's name as primary inventor, protected by the most aggressive intellectual property lawyers in Silicon Valley. Dr. Harrison's here, Preston announced, watching the parking lot. Along with representatives from Ford, Tesla, BMW, and Toyota. Melanie felt that familiar spark of intellectual excitement. Major automotive companies were competing for licensing rights to her technology. The same expertise that had been dismissed on Highway 17 was now worth $47 million in confirmed licensing deals. The conference room door opened. Dr. Harrison entered, followed by a parade of automotive executives whose combined companies represented billions in annual revenue. "Gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Melanie Castellanos, TechFlow's Chief Technology Officer and inventor of Melanie Tech Optimization Systems." Preston's introduction carried obvious pride. Chief Technology Officer. Melanie still felt amazed by the title. 6 months ago, she'd been unemployable due to her criminal record and homeless status. Today, she held executive authority over TechFlow's entire technical division. "Ms. Castellanos," Dr. Harrison stepped forward with genuine respect, "your preliminary technical documentation was extraordinary. We're eager to see the full presentation." Melanie activated the wall display, her technology specifications filling the screen with complex algorithms and performance metrics. Melanie Tech represents third-generation hybrid optimization, achieving 63% efficiency improvement over current industry standards. The automotive executives leaned forward, studying her data with intense interest. Melanie's confidence had been completely restored through 6 months of professional success and recognition. "The licensing terms?" asked the Ford representative. "Non-exclusive licensing at $12 million per manufacturer, plus 4% royalty on all vehicles implementing Melanie Tech systems." Preston handled the business negotiations while Melanie focused on technical questions. As the presentation concluded, Melanie felt profound satisfaction. Her stolen technology had been legitimately recreated, properly protected, and was about to transform an entire industry. Jenna Walsh's betrayal had ultimately failed to destroy what Melanie could achieve. After the executives departed with licensing agreements, Preston found Melanie in her office reviewing development reports from her 12-person engineering team. "How does it feel to be worth $47 million? Preston asked. "It feels like justice," Melanie replied. "But not just for me." She was referring to Trevor Hawkins' prosecution, which had concluded 2 weeks earlier. Melanie's expert testimony had been devastating. Trevor received 3 years in federal prison for systematic fraud, while his victims received a collective settlement of $2.3 million from his seized assets. "Frank Martinez called," Preston mentioned. "He wanted to thank you again for the $10,000 reward you sent him." Melanie had used part of her TechFlow earnings to compensate Frank for the tools she'd stolen during her homeless period. Frank had initially refused the money, but Melanie insisted on making proper restitution plus interest. "Any word from your family?" Preston asked gently. Melanie's expression became thoughtful. "My brother called yesterday. He read about Melanie Tech in Automotive Engineering Weekly. Wants to apologize for not believing me 3 years ago." "Are you going to forgive him?" "I already have. Understanding how convincing Jenna's evidence was helps me forgive everyone who believed the accusations." Melanie's voice carried hard-won wisdom. "Holding grudges only hurts the person carrying them." Preston smiled. Melanie's resilience and grace continued to amaze him. She'd transformed professional destruction into innovation opportunity, personal betrayal into deeper empathy. "Speaking of Jenna," Preston said carefully, "our investigators found something interesting." Melanie looked up from her reports. 6 months earlier, Preston had hired forensic accountants to investigate Dynamic Motors' intellectual property theft. Melanie deserved to know what had happened to the woman who destroyed her life. "Jenna Walsh was terminated from Dynamic Motors 4 months ago," Preston continued. "Internal audit discovered she'd been stealing intellectual property from multiple engineers, not just you, creating a pattern of systematic IP theft for personal profit." Melanie felt unexpected sympathy for her former friend. She destroyed her own career eventually. She's facing federal charges for corporate espionage. The other engineers she betrayed are testifying against her. Preston paused. "Your case gave them courage to come forward." Justice had arrived for Jenna Walsh through her own pattern of betrayal. Melanie's experience had helped expose a broader fraud scheme that had victimized dozens of engineers. "There's something else," Preston said, producing an official-looking document. "Dynamic Motors wants to offer you their Chief Innovation Officer position. Salary of $400,000, unlimited research budget, full intellectual property protection." Melanie read the offer letter with amazement. The company that had fired her in disgrace was now begging for her return at executive level. "Interesting," Melanie said finally. "Are you considering it?" Melanie looked around her TechFlow office, where engineering prototypes lined the shelves and her team's breakthrough research covered every wall. Then she looked at Preston, who'd believed in her potential when everyone else had written her off. "I'm exactly where I belong," Melanie said firmly. "TechFlow is home." Preston felt relief and gratitude. Melanie's partnership had transformed his company while her friendship had transformed his understanding of worth, expertise, and human potential. "One final surprise," Preston said, pulling out plane tickets. 2 weeks in Germany, visiting BMW's advanced engineering facilities. They want to discuss exclusive licensing for Melanie Tech integration. Melanie examined the tickets with delight. Business class. First class. Your TechFlow's CTO. We travel appropriately. As evening approached, Melanie and Preston stood on TechFlow's rooftop terrace, overlooking Silicon Valley. The same California sun that had witnessed their Highway 17 meeting was setting over a landscape transformed by their partnership. "Do you ever think about that breakdown?" Melanie asked. "Every day. Best mechanical failure of my life." Preston's voice carried deep contentment. "You changed everything for me. My perspective on success, my understanding of expertise, my appreciation for what really matters." "You saved my life," Melanie said simply. "Not just my career. My belief in human decency, my faith in partnership, my hope for the future." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. 6 months ago, they'd been strangers divided by assumptions, circumstances, and prejudice. Today, they were partners united by mutual respect, shared success, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Melanie Castellanos, formerly homeless engineer, was now Chief Technology Officer of a thriving technology company, inventor of breakthrough automotive systems, and partner in one of Silicon Valley's most successful engineering collaborations. Preston Cole, formerly isolated by wealth and assumptions, had learned to recognize expertise in unexpected places, value human potential over surface appearances, and understand that the most important business decisions involve choosing people over profit. Their story had become legend in Silicon Valley. The homeless woman and the billionaire who'd found each other on a highway shoulder and built something extraordinary together. Proof that expertise transcends circumstances, worth defies appearances, and love, in all its magnificent forms, truly can conquer anything that tries to divide us. The stars emerged over Silicon Valley, shining down on two people who discovered that sometimes the most valuable partnerships begin with the courage to see past assumptions and believe in human potential, no matter how unlikely the package it comes in. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, wait until you see what's coming next. It's even more powerful and inspiring than you can imagine. So don't go anywhere. Click on that video showing on your screen right now to dive into another amazing story that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't regret it.